been talking to friends more, coming out of that isolation, like I've been saying. And you know, earlier in my life, everybody would just be talking about problems. Like when you socialize, it's like, oh, these are all the issues that I have. This is all the stuff that's wrong with my life. And then we kind of validate each other and go, yeah, that sounds really tough, or give each other advice that actually isn't very helpful. Like, but these days, like, I'm just talking about how great everything is and looking for a different kind of validation. It's like, I just want you to tell me that I'm not crazy to believe that this is my life now, or this is my reality, or this is possible for me with the thing that I'm looking at doing next, you know? So I'm looking for like validation from friends, and I'm even working towards not even needing that, like just trusting myself and trusting the process so fully that like, I'm just like, of course, all of this amazing stuff that's happening is real and it's just gonna get better. And this is a really positive journal. And it's even funny to reflect in this moment that that seems strange to me. Like, oh, well, so much positivity. What is going on? I've just been, letting it happen. There's been a few journals where it's probably been obvious, where just like so much stuff has surfaced and I've just dealt with it instead of whatever it is that I was doing before that. I'm happy. Oh, I've just been sitting quietly and it's been the best. Like, there's no need for anything right now. And even that used to trigger off a response in me like, oh no, I'm becoming complacent. Always confusing contentment with complacency. Now, no, I'm content. And things are always happening. I'm in awe of like how relaxed I am and how much time I seem to have to just be with myself and like integrate and process stuff and imagine new possibilities when there's like so much going on. Like I was scrolling through my own socials, like just on this like reflective, introspective, journey. And I was going, well, like, wow, like look at all this stuff. Like look at all of this value. Like even for myself to like read back the written kind of journal entries on my Instagram, or like watch the videos. There's so much history there. There's so much that's been created. And, for the first time, I'm well enough to understand how well I've done. Like, I couldn't actually appreciate I couldn't appreciate all the good things about my journey and myself. Couldn't appreciate how creative I've actually been and how much I've actually achieved until recently. And maybe I'll even appreciate it even more deeply and be more grateful for it in the future. But like, yeah, I've just been looking at my life right now and just going, wow. And it's a little bit because like looking back, it's looking pretty good from here, but looking forward, it's also looking spectacular. Like, the way that I would describe this place that I'm in and why it feels so good is that, I've got 4 months left to create for myself the next step. And because I've been doing the work, I feel like I'm ready now. So this sense of urgency has just fallen away, this sense of desperation to like make things happen. It's turned to like relaxation. This is what abundance is. I think I said it in another way recently too, that abundance of time, freedom with your time. Like, I'm doing more than enough to achieve my future goals. Like you can kind of see where your life is heading. You can see the trajectory that you're on. pretty clearly if you're honest with yourself. And I'm looking in 4 months down the track, and I'm just going to be so far beyond where I set the goalpost. So like I can fit in even more spontaneous, beautiful, amazing things in the meantime, or I can even adjust the goalposts, although I may not, because I still do look at that future that I'm planning and I go, whoa, that's like big. And when I get there, I guess like there'll be new challenges, and I'm kind of just excited for that. Yeah. Coming out of isolation has been a really beautiful thing. I didn't expect it to be this beautiful. My friends are responding to me differently, like really differently. Like they're noticing the changes, and like I've been even blown away by how they're responding to me differently, and I'm like it's making me reflect even more on how much everything's changed. Like it's real. It's all real. Here we are. I couldn't have imagined. But how can you? How can you imagine how amazing your life can be before you experience it? Like, yeah, we only know the past. We only know all the experiences that we've already had, and we're trying to create a projection of what the future will be based on that evidence and information. And I think that was one of the big mistakes that I made, and I think it's a very human mistake when you stop collecting new information about reality and you start to rely too heavily on the information that you've already collected. So say you stop doing that at like 13, like you just decide you've got it all the information that you need to make the choices about life moving forward, and you dramatically reduce how much attention you pay to new information, like what's your life going to be like. But then take that to the other extreme. What if you spend your whole life always opening your mind to new information, like always looking for like, what else could I learn? What else could I discover? What would take place? Of course, I think there needs to be some kind of balance. Like I think we have a memory for a reason, and these past experiences can help us avoid shitty situations and pain and stuff. But I think a lot of us have had a lot of shitty situations that we are living our whole lives thinking that we need to watch out for those shitty situations showing up again, but they're just never going to show up again. You know, you're not a vulnerable little child anymore. The world isn't going to fuck with you the same way. Like, that's one thing that I've come to realize as an adult. Like, I don't, like, my exterior, like the way that I present to the world isn't vulnerable. So, like, I'm not a target. Not that, like, that's kind of psychologically revealing, isn't it? But it's a journal. It's to be expected. I have a lot more capacity to problem solve, face challenges, defend myself, create, like, that I didn't have when I learned all of this information about reality, about how hard it was going to be and how dangerous it is, or how little support I had. Like, all the things that I learned as a child about, like, not being supported, I can provide most of that support to myself now. I can do everything for myself. I'm an adult. So it's just like this whole unlearning, relearning, or even just unlearning, and that's it. Just flow, unlearn and flow. But like I said, a balance is good, because if you really contemplated deeply what it would be like to constantly absorb only new information and not use any of your previous information, you wouldn't be able to do anything. You'd be a very dysfunctional human being. Like, I'm talking to the point where, like, 100% new information would mean that you literally retain nothing. You'd probably be a vegetable. I don't think you would have any function if you couldn't retain information and it was just purely new information coming in at all times. Like, it would certainly be a completely overwhelming experience to be a human being. And I think, like, when I look around at people, this is one of the things that actually fascinates me, and this is why it's already floating around in my awareness. Like, I see people that are on this spectrum of, like, retaining old information and absorbing new information, and different people are at different parts of that spectrum. Like, some people are very, like, open to experience, and they're just like they're just, everything's new to them all the time, and they're in that constant state of wonder or sometimes terror, depending how they're dealing with the amount of information that's coming. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, it can either be this beautiful, magical, amazing thing to have a huge openness to experience. It can be so exciting, or it can be absolutely terrifying if it's like, you know, if it feels involuntary, like I didn't ask for this, like I'm just very sensitive to the world and it just feels very loud and overwhelming. Like, I want to subdue it, I want to turn it down. Like, that's one of the big issues that I had, like, before I started all my healing stuff. Like, that's why I did a lot of drugs in the past, because I just wanted to subdue reality, turn it down a little bit. Or at times way back, I wanted to turn it all off. That was my words, like, turn it all off, turn off life, stop it. And then, yeah, I see people at the end of the spectrum of experience where they're basing everything off. They're not open to experience, like new experience. They're just repeating patterns. And some of those people are so efficient because they've actually created, like, pretty solid programs they're practical, and, you know, they make great employees. They make great family units often. Like, they do what they do well. That's one side of the coin. If you are really programmed and not open to new experience, and you're basing it all off, like, patterns that you've created. The other side of it is people who are just so stuck because the programs that they've set up aren't practical, they're just painful. So they're just stuck in this loop that's endless. They're nihilistic, they hate their lives, often suicidal, very depressed, even anxious, because they know that to free themselves from this cycle that they're stuck in, they would have to change, and that's terrifying. So what are you gonna do? Like, and can we, like, what do you do as a person, whether you're open to new experience and it's all flowing in and it's terrifying to you and you want to change that, or if you're somebody who's not very open to new experience and you're set in your patterns and behaviors and you want to change that. Like, I know some ways. But it's just curious. I'm just contemplating. These video journals, I'm just documenting my thoughts and feelings in the present moment. It's never intended to be advice or guidance. Yeah. I'm in a mood where I'm just, like, looking at the spectrum of possibilities of being, and I'm looking at my own changes, and I'm just curious what else could be. My biggest challenge at the moment is knowing what I want knowing like the most absurd, incredible, wondrous, spectacular experience that's available to me that isn't a fairy tale. It's like something that it could be real, you could make it happen. And knowing that it's right in front of me. But the last fear that's come up recently is that if I step into something so powerful, like so wonderful, it's just gonna create waves in my life, like these highs and lows again. Like if I'm just overflowing with joy and gratitude, like how am I gonna feel on the other side of that? Like what? Like I'm scared to create waves. Like I'm so grounded and present, and since I've been isolating myself, everything's been simple and easy, and I'm in charge of everything. Like it's all my choice. And as I'm coming out of isolation and connecting with old friends and new people, like I feel the potential for these waves to come back into my life. And I'm fearful of that, but less and less so. Like this is actually stuff that I'm already halfway through dealing with, I reckon. Like, but that's been my biggest challenge lately. I've been just knowing, like, I'm here, this is great, but I want to be over there, but I'm too scared to approach the horizon because I know it's going to come and meet me. And when it does, the experience is going to be full on in the best possible way. But if I'm going to experience that much positive emotion, I don't know. It's actually nothing to be afraid of. I know it's nothing to be afraid of. Any imbalances that I create, I know how to deal with it. Just been scared that I might lose myself again. It's easier just to be like steady, grounded, no disturbance. But it's ridiculous because I've dipped my toes into these new possibilities and I've experienced what it might be like. And I actually did stay grounded anyway. It actually didn't affect my balance. Like I stayed, like I felt like it was, this is where it all came from, right? Like I've experienced a taste of what I really want to step into. And I felt the potential there for me to just get really excited and elevated and just like dive into all the positive and just like overdo it kind of thing and just feel too good and then feel terrible when it's all gone. Like getting high. It's like getting high. I'm scared of getting high. Like but not from drugs, like from experience, from like love, from joy. I'm scared of getting high and then having a come down, like then having to be low. Like I don't want to get high. I want to manage my expectations and I want to stay balanced, but I also don't want to limit my experience. I don't want to limit the possibility of what I can possibly feel, but even that is nonsense coming out of my mouth because I felt deeply in these moments that I've already had. It's not, you don't have to get like high and out of balance to feel deeply and feel something that's just so rich and satisfying. It can be balanced. It's like a balanced high, like just a balanced good feeling, like a balanced like contentment. Maybe just like like I'm still using old information, right? Like I was talking about before, old information about how these things should feel. Like in a recent journal, I was talking about the fairy tale thing that I do, where like I'm always trying to look for something that's just out of this world, and then I'm realizing now that actually reality is better than any fairy tale I could ever imagine if I can really step into a moment that feels whole to me. Yeah, I can trust myself. I know how to navigate this now. I'm observing myself moving through these experiences, and I'm feeling so fully and wholeheartedly and loving every minute of it. I'm not gonna get high. Like I'm not gonna lose myself in anything. And even if I did like get a little bit wobbly, I know how to center myself. I know how to come back to point zero. That's where I'm arriving right now. I'm ready. Let's do this. If anybody out there gets anything out of these video journals, I've spoken to a bunch of you. You know, people come for sessions. We do video calls, all kinds of things. And the people here are actually the most emotionally intelligent, like incredible, like doing the work kinds of people. Like every time a new person who watches this stuff reaches out to me, like it just blows my mind, and I'm reminded like this is so worth doing just to have these kinds of connections with people, because where else are you going to meet like an abundance of people that are like on your level? Like it's been pretty incredible. Like I'm so grateful for people who actually like reach out and connect and say g'day. But if you know anybody else who may benefit in any way from what we're doing here, bring them into the community, include them. Maybe even like use these videos as a starting point to your own discussions about what's going on. And, you know, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Encourage your friends to subscribe. Click the like button for me whenever you feel inclined, because that helps me as well. Like it helps YouTube decide who to show it to, but it helps me see like, oh, that's these videos here. It's like your way of voting. Like this is the content that is actually effective and powerful, or gives some kind of benefit to us. And yeah, kailives.com is my website, and on that website you will learn a little bit more about what I'm doing with my life outside of just rambling about my thoughts and feelings in the present moment. It's a much bigger picture. I haven't actually revealed the bigger picture all the way yet, but I will in time.